This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
OPEC oil output rose in May, a Reuters survey found, although the increase was limited as Iraq pumped below target to compensate for earlier overproduction in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates made smaller hikes than allowed. The OPEC pumped 26.75 million barrels per day last month, up 150,000 barrels of oil per day from April's total, the survey showed on Monday, with Saudi Arabia making the largest increase. OPEC Plus is accelerating its plan to unwind its most recent layer of output cuts. At the same time, some members are required to make extra cuts to compensate for earlier overproduction, in theory limiting the impact of the hikes.
Oil prices climbed on Tuesday as investors awaited the outcome of US-China talks that could pave the way for easing trade tensions and improve fuel demand. Brent crude futures rose 28 cents, or 0.4%, to $67.32 a barrel by 0330 GMT. US West Texas Intermediate crude was up 23 cents, or 0.4%, at $65.52. On Monday, Brent had risen to $67.19, the highest since April 28, buoyed by the prospect of a US-China trade deal. US-China trade talks were set to continue for a second day in London as top officials aim to ease tensions that have expanded from tariffs to rare earth curbs, risking global supply chain disruptions and slower growth.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Asian countries aren't rushing to buy US energy commodities, even though lifting imports of crude oil, liquefied natural gas and coal will help meet President Donald Trump's demand for lower trade surpluses. While rare earths may be the immediate talking point in the current talks between the Trump administration and China, the real action behind any deal will be in the big three energy commodities. The same is true for other Asian economies seeking to curry favor with Trump and get a better deal than the hefty tariffs imposed on many in his so-called Liberation Day measures announced on April 2, and subsequently paused for 90 days.
As the world's biggest solar energy conference kicks off in Shanghai on Tuesday, the mood is likely to be subdued as Chinese solar panel producers grapple with oversupply and price reforms. Most of the world's solar farms are powered by cells and modules made in China, but the country's top producers are facing billions of dollars in losses as breakneck competition has pushed prices below cost level. Producers are trimming back production in response, just as they also face uncertainty about the outlook for demand due to policy changes on solar power project investment. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. The three top U.S. trade negotiators are seeking a handshake with China in London talks to seal the agreement on rare earths reached by Presidents Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett said on Monday. The purpose of the meeting today is to make sure that they're serious, but to literally get handshakes, Hassett, director of the National Economic Council, told CNBC in an interview. I expect it to be a short meeting with a big, strong handshake, Hassett added.
Iron ore futures prices extended their decline into a second straight session on Tuesday, dragged by expectations of growing supply, although resilient demand from top consumer China and hopes of easing Sino-US trade tensions curbed losses. The most traded September iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange dipped 0.28% to 702 yuan and 50 fen, $97.79, a metric ton, as of 0215 GMT. The benchmark July iron ore on the Singapore exchange was down 0.21% to $94.05 a ton.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Japan will release another 200,000 metric tons of rice from its emergency stockpile to tackle a doubling of prices since last year, Agriculture Minister Shinjiro Koizumi said on Tuesday. Of the new release, 100,000 tons of 2021 crop year rice will be sold first, to retailers of all sizes and local rice sellers with sufficient milling capacity, he said. The rest will follow from the 2020 crop year. Soaring rice prices have become a major concern for consumers and policymakers ahead of key elections in Tokyo and nationwide. Consumers have been forming long queues to buy the 5 kilograms bags of stockpiled rice priced at 2,000 yen, $13.82, since they began hitting store shelves in the past week and a half. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.